Hi guys, and today's movie that you don't hate.
This could be the end of Spider-Man.
Spider-Man 3.
So this movie came out in 2007 after Sam Raimi brought Spider-Man back to the big screen in 2002. Pretty much launched a great trilogy. Capped it off kind of questionable, but the first two movies were great.
First two movies are great.
But we are going to talk about Spider-Man 3 because it's actually gotten a lot of flack. But honestly, if you really break it down, you really don't hate this movie.
No, I mean, it has a lot of good points to Spider-Man 3. A lot of good things that you get to take away from that movie. We're like, man, I really love that they did this. Man, I really love that they did this. Didn't like so much that they did that.
For those of you that have not seen You Don't Hate, we're actually going to break the movie down in 5 different categories. The plot, the acting, the directing, the special effects and action sequences, and characters.
Right.
After that, we're going to tally up the scores on whether you like or hate, and we're going to let you know the final, whether you hate this movie or not.
Which, hopefully, if we do a good job, then you'll walk away saying that you really don't hate this film.
All right, so Terrence, start the scoreboard now.
Great.
And give us the plot to Spider-Man 3.
Okay. So just like you said, this film actually follows the first 2 Tobey Maguire films, and we get to see a little bit older Spider-Man, who actually, since he's gone through all the don't know where my place is, got a balanced life in Spider-Man and everything falling apart, he's actually kind of got everything back on track. Got the love of his life in his pocket, ready to get everything done, but he has to deal with a new villain that's being brought into the series for this time, which is Sandman, and a whole backstory of Uncle Ben not really being the cause of Uncle Ben's death.
Who he thought was.
Yeah, who he thought was the cause of Uncle Ben's death, and the way it unfolded. And it almost kind of like, in a sense, where it says that, we wanted to give you a reason for another villain to exist, so we're going to tie it back to that one. So he's dealing with this character that now has another hand in the Uncle Ben death. He's also dealing with the symbiote suit. That gets introduced into this series at that particular point, and how it affects him being Spider-Man going forward, as well as following up what happened in the first 2 films and his rocky relationship with Harry. So that's basically where the plot sets up. He has a girl he wants. He's dealing with Uncle Ben's death all over again. He's dealing with the problems with Harry and this new symbiote suit and how it affects him as Spider-Man.
Overall, I thought that there was too many plots going on.
There were way too many, because I'm tired of actually talking about all those different plots in just that brief summary.
And some of it was unnecessary. I thought that the Sandman thing going back and tying into Ben was they tried too hard on that. It was either or. I mean, you were either going to extend the rivalry and with Harry and continue the plot of the Norman Osborn factor and all of that, which I thought is the route that they should have gone.
They should have gone that way.
Where you introduced the Hobgoblin instead of whatever the new Goblin that he played, that Franco played. And just eliminate the Sandman altogether. If you want to introduce a symbiote, I think 2 is fine. I think if you want to do a sub with the symbiote, I think that's fine.
Right.
But I thought that the inclusion of all 3, it's just too much to focus on, too much to concentrate. And from a character standpoint, it's kind of hard to now. Granted, his character is already developed and all that, but it's kind of hard for him to go even further as far as the character. What's the character left to do? You know what I mean? Like, as far as depth, there's no real depth anymore. Granted, the symbiote suit plays a part, because then you see the darker side of Peter Parker. But overall, I think that those 2 plots should have been the. So
your problem is that, like, you would have rather not have done Sandman, and that would have made an even balance for you. I feel the other way around. Minus the whole tie-in to Uncle Ben, I'm okay with the Sandman subplot. I like the whole thing with him and his daughter. I like him being a criminal. I agree with you. I don't think it should have tied into Uncle Ben, but I think that the symbiote and Venom was the problem. Is that was it, almost when you look at stuff like with Superman, with BVS, tying so many storylines into BVS, and you do the death of Superman. I think the symbiote needed its own movie. Like the death of Superman needed to have its own movie. Symbiote needed its own movie. Venom and the symbiote and all of that, fine. In its own separate movie, I think it would have given a lot more time to breathe with him and Harry. It would have gave a lot more time to breathe with. They could have made Sandman have his own motivations outside of forcing it, because they were like, okay, we can do this faster if we just tied in Uncle Ben, because then everybody gets the whole death of Uncle Ben. They could have just really built him up as a character himself, and how that would have whatever they could have came up with to say, like, this is the reason why him and Spider-Man don't like each other. I think it's that portion that felt tacked on, and at the way it went down throughout when they were writing this film, the symbiote wasn't included in this plot to begin with. The studio forced that on him because they were like, hey, the kids like Venom. Get Venom in this film. We gotta get the Venom in this film, and we're gonna get out there and they're gonna spend tons of money, this was one of the highest grossing ones, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
So overall, as a plot, I just think it was a little messy, just like you felt, because of the fact that there was too many. Did you really hate the plot?
The only thing well, first of all, I think that the symbiote suit creating the dark side of Peter Parker would actually have benefited his existing relationship with Harry as far as the conflict.
Okay.
If you Sandman, without, let's say you don't put the Uncle Ben factor in there and it's just a Sandman, it's just another villain. It's okay. It's just as relevant as Paul Giamatti in the freaking Spider-Man movie.
You actually, now that you say that, you just changed my mind, because it does work better with Harry.
Yes.
It makes him a darker person in his relationship with Harry, and Sandman doesn't really fit in that particular thing. We're looking at it that way, and if you take the symbiote suit out, him and Harry and the Sandman are just two different things.
Right.
Are just two different things. At least you can tie those two together, the symbiote and Harry together, and the Sandman. Okay, I agree with you.
Because if you really think about it, there has always been a sense of inferior, like he's inferior to Harry because of his money and where he comes from and his power.
And then he can have that ego and that
and
self.
And that's where the suit would come in to actually give him the confidence against Harry. Even as Spider-Man, he is still inferior to Harry, in my opinion. Even with the powers and all that, I think there's a certain level of like where he's still at a standback with Harry. This time, when he has the suit, I think that elevates him as far as character depth towards Harry and how he is towards him. That's why I think that plays better in that scenario as opposed to tying Sandman with Uncle Ben. It's really toss up on that.
How do you feel like about we obviously know how we would have improved it, but how do we feel about what they gave us so far?
It's really hard to say, the honesty, but if I had to, my honest opinion on the movie always has been from the beginning to the middle, it's excellent. It's really good from the beginning to the middle.
Right.
From the middle to the end, it's all over the place.
So, basically, the setup is, the plot is basically the setup of the film, so the plot was something that
I liked because the setup was great. It was good. Some of it was forced, I get it, but from the beginning to the middle, it felt like a continuation of the storyline at the end of 2, when Harry gets, when he opens, he finds the secret vault or the lair, whatever, of Norman, and sees all of the goblin stuff. That's where it pretty much takes off from there.
It wasn't this?
No, not that, no. So, in that regard, I'll give it a like. Why not?
I'm going to go ahead and give it a like, too. Like you said, I was on board all the way up to... So, I even though it was a lot going on and a lot to take in, I still was on board with this film going into the plot of this film. So, I'm going to give it a like as well.
All right. Point for like, 1-0. Starting off pretty good.
Yeah.
Next one is acting. This one has a pretty decent cast. The majority of the cast from the first 2 films return. They all return. Tobey Maguire plays Spider-Man / Peter Parker. Kirsten Dunst plays Mary Jane. James Franco, half Italian, half asleep, comes back as Harry. Newcomer to the series, Hayden Church. No, Thomas Hayden Church.
Okay.
As a Sandman, and yes, Topher Grace comes back as Venom. For me, the highlight is always J.K. Simmons.
Okay.
All day as Jonah Jameson.
Perfect casting.
Yeah, perfect casting. The acting overall, I thought that, I mean, Toby is your usual, he's very emotional. I mean, he can show emotion like hardcore, so. And those dance moves, you can't.
Those dance moves.
Franco was good. I thought Franco was really good on it too. Still having that inner conflict regarding his love for Peter and his love for his father. Right. So that was really good. Thomas Hayden Church coming off. I think it was around the time that he was doing Sideways. So that was getting Oscar nods. So I think that maybe that was still tying in there where his acting ability was coming out even more so.
Oscar between him and Serkis.
Serkis! Anyway, Andy Serkis deserves an Oscar. That's another show. But anyway, but yeah, so I thought Thomas Hayden Church was okay. Given the material that he had.
I liked him as Sandman.
He did good as Sandman. So the weak link for me, and sorry, I love that 70s show, but the weak link for me was Topher Grace.
Oh my God. He was, and I understand why they cast him, because even the directors even said, it was like, hey, when we put this together, we were originally thinking about casting Topher Grace to be Spider-Man, and it didn't work out. We went with Tobey Maguire. So when we were looking at like a who could mirror, Spider-Man, was like, well, let's go back and get Topher Grace, because basically he is Tobey Maguire 2.0 at that point, I guess. So I understand why they cast him, but that's not who Eddie Brock was. But if we take aside just the character himself, Topher Grace was barely there. If he wasn't Venom, I mean, he was barely there. I mean, it's like he never did anything besides look a little pouty when he got fired that did anything that made me like,
you're gonna ruin me?
Yeah, it was like he didn't do anything but be pouty at that particular moment. And it's like if he wasn't Venom, he'd have been a blip on the screen. And
that is why I wasn't I wasn't really happy with him. I love you, Topher, but no, I just didn't agree.
So we're
with the acting.
With the acting. What about the acting when Tobey Maguire was Black Suit Spider-Man?
You know what?
I mean, is he gonna get a pass for the?
He's not going to get a pass for the dancing, but he is going to get a pass on how he executed the darkness, especially when he fights Harry and he is just simply not intimidated whatsoever. Okay. It's a different side of Tobey Maguire when he's facing Harry and he is just going at him like, your father's not here to protect you type of attitude that he had.
There you go. So, that's a great line to bring up.
So I gotta give him that. I gotta excuse him for the dancing and all that because of that. So I'm gonna give it to acting. The good outweigh the bad.
Yeah,
especially because J.K. Simmons in it. So I'm giving it to like.
I will also go ahead and give it a like.
2-0.
Good way. Is the bad, like the dancing and Topher Grace were really small parts of that film. So.
Yeah, so good. 2-0 right now. We're starting off great. Directing, Sam Raimi, who fell to the pressure in this film. Yeah, and you know what? To be honest with you, if you had all these freaking executives who, in their own way, have a lot to lose, but at the same time, with a property like Spider-Man, and you've had arguably one of the top 5 comic book movies of all time with Spider-Man 2. Leave him alone. Right. Just leave him alone. You're doing too much. You're adding too much pressure to the guy. When you micromanage, it's going to fall apart. And that's exactly what I think would happen.
No, I mean it did. I mean he didn't get to tell the story that he wanted to tell. He had a story with Sandman, which maybe with time and more scenes given to Sandman, he could have actually gave us a better explanation of why. Maybe he didn't have planned to do Uncle Ben, but like I said, maybe because of the amount of time that he had forcing in all these particular villains, he had to give something quick and simple. But because of that, you sabotage your own film in doing such.
Exactly.
You didn't stand your ground. You already had 2 films in the can. It was like, if you felt like they were pushing it, like push back. I mean, fucking Sam Raimi, come on.
Yeah, really.
You can request some stuff, and like I said, to bow down to the pressure. So much so that he didn't even want to do Spider-Man 4. They even greenlit Spider-Man 4. He didn't even do it because he felt so pressured the first time. it made the film come out messy by fast forwarding some things and cutting some other things just to force in what was going to go on with Venom. And even though we talked about how Venom could have worked better in this than the Sandman, it's still, because you did both, it didn't you didn't service your film well. So I wasn't really big on what he did in directing in this film.
And there were some elements.
And that dance scene.
Yeah, and there were some. Yeah, he yelled action for those scenes.
Yeah, it was like he was like,
and cut. That's a print.
You know what? We're gonna keep. We're
gonna put that in. So, given the fact that he did put elements of the first two movies in it, especially in the beginning, I'll give him that. But overall, the overall execution of the entire film, I thought, like you said, was messy, forced, and it just was not Raimi. It was not Sam Raimi. So I'm gonna have to give it a hate.
I give it a hate too.
Yeah. All right. Finally hate's happy. Got him on the board. So.
All you people who don't like this film.
2-1 so far. Special effects and action sequences.
Right. Okay.
Not enough action, in my opinion.
Not enough action. I mean, it's like they had a lot of story to cover. They had to cover Sandman. They had to cover Harry. They had to cover Venom and Eddie Brock and the whole transition from the symbiote to Venom. They had so much to do. There's so much story to tell. They didn't have enough time. This film would have been 3 hours for them to give enough time to do extra action scenes. The action scenes in this film was we have the end fight with Harry and Peter and the Venom thing at the bell tower. And then that one Sandman scene is all I really remember as far as fight scenes for this film.
And the dancing.
I mean, if you want to call that a fight scene, it's sexy fighting.
Well,
sexy.
He punched Kristen Dunst, so.
Oh yeah, he did. He did. Oh, Kristen Dunst.
Sorry.
Oh, Kristen Dunst.
Get Brad Pitt to turn him into a vampire.
I mean, do you remember another fight? I mean, another action scene from this film?
Well, I mean the
major
the armor truck.
I mean, major.
You got the armor truck, which was actually an iconic scene because he punches through them.
Right.
Side note and fun fact for that: amateur boxer Baxter Humby, who is actually an amputee, was used in the stunt because he has a cut arm. So the arm was actually used to give the effect of him punching through Sandman. So that was actually pretty cool. But overall, I thought the action sequences were limited. Some of the execution as far as the special effects when it came to the action sequences, especially the Sandman scenes, were really good.
Right.
So
that was because to see sand and forming a thing at the time that this film came out was cutting edge. I mean, it was really, really good. I guess not to hate too much on Venom, if you think about like how they did some of the Venom scenes, even though when Venom was by himself and not actually on Eddie Brock, it did look a little CGI and a little wonky, but I mean, the time that it came out, I got to give it a little bit of pass, so we'll see.
For special effects, I think the special effects outweigh the action sequences, so I'm going to give it a like.
I mean, I didn't have a problem. Like you said, only thing I felt like it could have used a little bit more. How do I feel about this? I'm going to give it a like. I mean, because I don't walk away saying, like, I don't like what they gave us. I just wanted more. It left me wanting.
Right. Right. And final is characters. I mean, you got your basic, you got your Spider-Man, you got Harry Osborn, you got Mary Jane, Jonah Jameson.
Right.
That's his name, right? Jonah Jameson? Did I say that right?
J. Jonah Jameson.
J. Jonah Jameson. Jenna Jameson? No, wrong one. Wrong movie.
Whoa.
Wrong movie. Anyway.
That would have made this movie so much better.
Oh, yeah. Now, that's a 2-on-1. Anyway, so, and then, of course, you have Eddie Brock and Venom.
So... All right, so
there are way too many characters in this movie to really care about what goes on, with the exception of Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker, because he's like, he can play that role in his sleep.
Did he portray Black Suit Spider-Man well?
When you did
dancing aside.
One of the most iconic scenes and selling point in the trailer, especially when he's hanging upside down in the black suit. Obviously, that's all CGI. He's not really there. And in some scenes he is, some scenes he's not. The execution of the costumes and all that, I thought was great.
Right. But him living that character.
Black Suit Spider-Man, maybe not so much. Maybe if they had a little bit more scenes. I mean, if you really think about it, you take out Sandman, that gives more scenes to Black Suit Spider-Man. So, I mean, I would have liked to see Black Suit Spider-Man interact with even more petty crimes, petty criminals. How would he handle those? How would he really handle those?
Yeah, seeing more of that dark.
Yes,
angry,
exactly. So now is Spider-Man is Harry really the villain, or is Peter Parker the villain? So it's like there's just so many opportunities. So. Franco's the same way. Franco can play Harry Osborn like nothing. So he also.
I think Franco was good as Harry Osborn. I don't have a problem with his characterization of Harry Osborn. I think my problems were the Sandman himself. I love
even
what they did.
Even though you liked his performance.
I loved his performance, and I love the look of Sandman. It's just that whole forcing that Uncle Ben thing really bugged me in his character. And it makes me, because it's like, okay, he's a petty crook, and I get it. He gets this whole thing. He becomes made of sand. They covered that, but they also covered Eddie Brock too. But I don't feel like they covered either one of those characters the way that they. Yeah, I don't think they covered them in the way they were really intended to be.
Right.
And so I think they failed on Eddie Brock. I think they failed on the Sandman, and I failed on Venom. And for me, I don't think, like we said, outweighing, because in my to me it's three characters. It's Eddie Brock, it's Venom, and it's Sandman, as opposed to just Harry.
It's four.
And versus the bad of this film versus Harry and what Tobey Maguire had already done as Spider-Man. I think he gets a lot of he gets a lot of things already earned by what he's done in two films, as opposed to what he did in this one film. I didn't like Black Suited Spider-Man. I didn't. It was too brief. It was too brief.
You really couldn't.
And then that montage is all we really remember him being as Black Suited Spider-Man. And then next thing you know, Bell Tower, boom, he's out.
Right.
He's back to old Spider-Man. I was like, I felt a little betrayed by that.
And on top of that, you really couldn't care. I mean, it was very comic booky. It was almost reminiscent of a Penguin and Catwoman in Batman Returns, and they're conspiring to plot against Batman, and that had you more excited than Eddie Brock / Venom talking to Sandman plotting against Spider-Man. You didn't care. No, you cared more for the other two than you did those two. So I thought that was not, it just wasn't there for me. And also, towards the end, when they were actually the final fight scene, right before Peter's about to get it, and Harry comes and saves the day, the excitement was not there. It was not there. We're like, yeah, Harry, and now it's a team up 2 against 2. It gives me Batman Forever. Two is better. 2 versus 2 is better. Those odds are better. That kind of thing. It's just not. I just didn't like it.
Come on, you don't hate.
Never.
Batman Forever?
Oh, Batman Forever? Yeah, I'll do Batman Forever. That's another topic. But anyway, characters, I'm going to give it a hate.
I'm going to give it a hate as well. It wasn't my favorite part of this film. And it was one of the things where, as a comic book geek, where you're like, they didn't give me what I wanted on screen. This is not how the comic book would have gone. You felt that moment in the scene, and as everything was unfolding, you were like, it's so much better than the comic book.
When you look at Spider-Man 2 and how you really felt the loss that Doc Ock felt when he lost his wife, and and the plot of everything, and I mean his motivation for doing what he was doing, factoring in what Harry is trying to find out and eventually does find out, it leaves you you can't wait to see the continuation of that story. You do not get that with Spider-Man 3, which that's why it kind of falters a little bit, and a lot of people, give it a lot of crap. This movie was actually budgeted at $258, made $890 million.
Crazy money.
You were talking about length. It was 140 minutes, making it the longest of all 3 of the movies. And reshoots actually did happen and it's funny, reshoots happened for this movie because test audience didn't feel that there was enough action. So if there was any action in the movie,
there was less action.
It was less before. So yeah, either way, 3-2. You look at the score, 3-2. Hate loses.
Yeah.
And it just shows to show that you really don't hate this movie.
You don't hate this film. I mean, it has a lot of bad things about it, but
there's a lot of good things.
Yeah, there's a lot of great things. It was like, you got to see a bunch of, we are going to see Venom. I was going to say we're never going to see Venom again, but we're going to see a way better Venom because of this. Basically said, don't do it this way. We got a better Spider-Man coming out of this film. Well, not specifically with this film, but because what happened in the Amazing Spider-Man. But this film at least told us what we can't do going forward, and we got some good things going forward with other Spider-Man films. But it did some things that we get to take away. Some CGI that was in it, some special effects that were in it, and some characterizations of some people.
And a great poster.
Terrence,
take us home.
All right. So once again, you guys really don't hate this film. Please give us some suggestions in the comment section too about other films that you feel like are unjustly hated that you think that we could defend. Because trust me, there's a lot of films that we see that we don't always follow what everybody else feels. Rotten Tomatoes, whatever. We like movies, and we would love to talk about films that you love, and give us some thoughts and give us some ideas.
Absolutely. And be sure to check out Spider-Man Homecoming. It's out now. Tom Holland does actually a very good job. He actually mixes Peter Parker and Spider-Man very well. So the character's in good hands, at least. For Aspen in the Back, I'm Manny.
I'm Terrence.
And we'll see you next time.
Okay, shut up.
Hey, we're recording.
All right, cool.
Yeah, we're recording now. Okay. She
Yes.
doesn't have a phone though.
All right. Take it.
Ready?
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, action.
I fucking forgot.
You're supposed to do this.
I know. I forgot. I said that's what I said. I fucking
Stop
forgot.
picking them.
All right.